Welcome to Data with Zach. Today, we're going to be talking about how I became 20th in the world in Halo 5. Well, at least for a second. One of the things that I realized when I played that game is if you want to get to like elite levels of play, you can't just carry your team. You need to have three other players who you can coordinate and collaborate and become like the dream team with. And one of the other things I realized was that Halo actually has like a stats API that you could call, and then I could just get all of this data myself. And then that's what I did. And I used a lot of like self joins and grouping sets to figure out who were the right players, like which players were impacting my performance and win rate more than others. And that's how I used all of this data and information to form like the dream team and the dream squad. And that's how I was able to really hit an elite level of play. I'm excited to teach you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. So today's training, we're going to be using this data model. You'll see we have a bunch of different tables here. There's match details, matches, and playlists. So when I was building out the pipeline for this, I mostly just took the API calls and matched them up. But these do have like foreign key constraints in my database. So for this training, we're mostly going to be using match details, matches, and playlists. Those are going to be the three main ones that we're going to be working on today. Matches is a table that describes like it has one record per match, and a match is usually like about a 10-minute game that people play, and like there's two teams, usually 4v4, and there's one team that wins, one team that loses. You can tie sometimes too, I guess. And then match details is the stats for a specific player. So if you have like, it would be my stats where I got like 8 kills in this match. That's why match details is connected to both players and matches, because it has a foreign key from both. And so we're going to be using that table a lot. We're going to be doing a lot of like self joins and aggregations with that table. And then playlists we also need because it provides a critical dimension around the playlist that you're playing in, because you don't want to mix up like social and competitive or different like versions of things. You want to like have that be another dimension in this data set. Otherwise, your data is missing something really important. So I'm really excited to present this with you, and the quality is not quite as good as I'd like on this training, but I think I learned a lot, and I will definitely, the next video, it will be really top notch. So get ready, buckle up. It's a fun training.
It's like so what I'm going to do, I'm going to filter this to just my gamer tag. So I'm going to say where player gamer tag equals exactly, just so y'all can see like what's going on here, right? So in this case, here's me, and then you can see like there's a lot of stats here, right, around like a bunch of things. Like some specific stats that I care about here are like player total kills, right? Because a very common stat that they use to measure performance in Halo is kills divided by deaths. And that gives you this thing called your kill death ratio. And the better your kill death ratio, usually the better you are at the game, right? And so one of the things that we are missing here, so you'll see that we have a bunch of things here around like death. See, there's player total deaths, player total kills. So let's just grab a couple things here. So we'll say like match ID, player total deaths, player total kills, right? And this will give us just like kind of the idea. And then the other thing that people care about a lot is win percentage, right? It's like, even if you have a good kill death ratio, if you're losing, you're not that good of a player. And in that case, we have another field here called did win, which is like just a 1 or a 0, depending on if you won or not. So this is what we're going to work with today. But there's one more field that we need, and that's based on playlist, because like depending on the playlist that you're playing, like that can make a big difference, right? So that's another critical dimension we are going to need here. So I'm actually going to alias this as like match details, and then I'm going to say we're going to say join matches m on md.match id equals m.match id, and we want to join again here on join playlists p on m.playlist id equals p.playlist id. So now we can get the playlist name. So if you say p.playlist or the p.name as playlist. So if we do this, this will give us, you'll see, so there's a couple different playlists. There's one called Big Team Battle, one called Breakout. So Breakout was the one that I did. That was where I got 20th in the world. That's where I was really, really good at Breakout. And that was my favorite playlist. So this is kind of like what we're going to be working with today is we're going to figure out like, oh, we need player gamer tag in here as well. Let's put player gamer tag because we want to be able to look at who it is. So see, here's me because I have that in the where clause. And so this is what we're going to be working with today. And like, this is the start of like where we're going to start. This is probably so far you guys are like, is this really like a serious SQL analytics training? This is where we're going to start doing some more fancy stuff. So we're going to be working, this is going to be our base query, and we're going to actually put this into CTE. We're going to call this augmented matches, all right? So this is, because we're going to be working with this too, and then we're going to get rid of this filter here. So I'm just going to say select star from augmented matches, just to kind of show you what's going on here. So you'll see there's a lot of other gamers in here. There's not just exactly, there's a bunch of other people. And oh yeah, actually, I just realized we need another thing in here. There's a thing called team ID, so we can make sure we get our teammates. We need that as well in this CTE. So now what we want to do is we want to filter this, or we want to like get every gamer on the same row with all of their teammates, right? And so this is where it gets a little complicated, where we're going to be using kind of a self join, right? So I'm going to say select star from augmented matches, and I'm going to call this AM. We're going to say join augmented matches AM2. And then in this case, we're going to want to join on we're going to say am.matchID equals am2.matchID. So let's just go ahead and like run this query real quick, and you can kind of see what's going on here. So you'll see like now we have, here's all of these things, right? These 6 rows for this guy named Draper. And like, you'll see here are these other people, right? So these are the other people in this match with Draper, right? So that's what's going on here, right? You can see these are the other people who are also in that match, right? Because these all have the same match ID. One of the problems here is that like these people are probably not on the same team, right? You'll see the team IDs do not match, right? You see these do not match these team IDs here. So we probably want to join on team ID as well, right? We're going to say and am.teamID equals am2.teamID. So now this gives us, this should filter it down a little bit, right? So let's find one that like, so here's one with TJack, right? So you see all these rows here, and like all this data is kind of duplicated a little bit. But then over here, you have the other people, right? These are the people that were on his team, because you see the team IDs match, right? But there's still a problem here, because like you see this first row is like the same, right? It's TJack because he's on a team with himself, right? So we probably want to get rid of this row as well, right? Because we don't care about that row. It's kind of like a duplicate kind of boring row. So I think we need one more join condition here. So we're going to say and am.playerGamerTag does not equal am2.playerGamerTag. So let's just run this query one more time. And now you'll see, okay, here's that TJack guy. Oh, oops. Let's run this one more time. It's gonna, okay, here's that TJack guy, but now you see it doesn't join with the other TJack row, right? This is no longer TJack, right? He doesn't have the row with himself. Now it's just the row with all of his teammates, right? So now what we can do, right, is we can start to kind of split up this query a little bit, right? So there's a couple things we want to do, right? We want to distinguish between I call it the shooting player and the helping player. So the shooting player in this case is the first one, this TJack guy. So I'm going to call that, I'm going to say am.playerGamerTag as shooting player. So this is the player that like we are going to be like looking at all of their teammates and how their teammates impact their performance, right? And then we're going to say am2.playerGamerTag as helping player. So this is the person who's helping, right? So that gives us those first two kind of rows that will give us these gamer tags and these gamer tags here, right? That will give us the shooting player and the helping player, right? Now what we can do is we can look at some other things here. Like we're going to say like am.player total kills as shooting player total kills. And then we probably want to do that again for total deaths. All this total deaths, shooting player total deaths. And we want to do this again for helping player as well. So we can see not just how their performance or their playing with them impacts us. We want to see how when we play with them, how we impact them as well, right? We want to see kind of both sides of that coin, right? And so in this case, this will be AM2 and this will be AM2. And this is instead of shooting player here, this is helping player and helping player. And then we want to put in AM dot did win as, because we want to also, the win percentage will be the same. We don't have to have two columns for that because you're on the same team. So like that column's the same. So, and oh yeah, command option L in data grip is really nice because you saw how I just formatted it and now this query looks really nice. So let's go ahead and run this query just to kind of see what we get out of this. Okay, so now you see we have the shooting player, we have the helping player, we have the shooting player total kills, total deaths, and did win, right? Oh, I forgot to add playlist. So we need to put playlist in there as well. So let's put in that, we'll say am.playlist because we need that to distinguish the different playlists because that's actually an important aggregation level that we're gonna be working with here. Okay, so now see we have our big team battle playlist at the end here and we now have all of our data like looking pretty nice. Side by side, like we can see how these different players kind of impact each other. Okay, so this is all fine and dandy. The problem here is that we now kind of need to do some aggregations, right? That's kind of the next kind of piece of this puzzle.
I have a question,
let's go ahead.
Zach.
Yeah.
So the last join condition there, where you eliminated the gamer tag for so it doesn't repeat twice.
Yeah.
Could that be a where clause as well, or like?
Yeah, you could put it in the where as well. This is that'll give you the same results. It's like almost identical actually. Like whether you put this in the where clause or you put it in the join, like it's gonna be pretty much the same. Like yeah, you're totally right. If this was like a left join or something else, it would make a difference. But since it's an inner join, it essentially just acts as a filter. You're totally right about that.
Okay, that's great. I just didn't know you could do that in the join. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty fancy. So I'm actually going to move this query that we currently have into another CTE because I don't want to like run an aggregation on top of this. So I'm gonna have this called combined matches, and this is going to be this query here. All right, so this will give us combined matches. So now what we're going to want to do is we want to aggregate this though, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to say select star from combined matches, and then we're going to so our aggregation here is we want shooting player and helping player, right? So that like that's going to end playlist. So we're going to do shooting player, helping player, playlist. We're going to say shooting player, helping player, playlist, right? So and then we want to do some ags here, right? So we want to say sum here of like sum shooting player total kills divided by sum shooting player total deaths, right? And then we also want some other things here, right? So this is as shooting player KDR, right? Kill death. KDR stands for kill death ratio. I'm just gonna copy this guy and we're gonna say gonna do the same thing here with helping player. And this is helping player KDR. So this will give us, and then we need a group by here, right? So we're gonna say group by those three, right? So now this will give us, let's just kind of run this and see what happens. Okay, so we get this weird like division by zero error. And the problem there is because there is some matches where someone got some kills, but they didn't die. So we actually need to put a little case when in here, right? So we want to say they're going to put a case when sum equals 0, then 1, else sum, right? Because that will get rid of the division by zero error, right? And we're going to want to do the same thing. Let's get that, put that on a new line. Copy this guy and put him down here as well. So this will handle the case when there are players that are where there is a division by zero. This needs to be shooting as well, or helping shooting. Okay, cool. That looks right. So now if we run this, it should run pretty great. Awesome. Okay, so one of the things that you'll notice here though is that like it's doing the division here is stupid, right? It's doing integer division here. So we want to like manage that, right? Main way to manage that is just cast the numerator. So if you say cast numerator as, I like using real, right? And that will the real data type will give us decimals, right? So if we run this again, you'll see now we'll have there we go. Now we have our nice little decimals, right? That are pretty cool. Apparently, when these two people play together, he averages a 15 KER, which is like really good. Okay, they probably only have one game though, right? So that's another thing that's important about doing this analysis. So let's go. I need to add some more columns into this data set here. So some more column. I need to put this on a new line. This comma goes away, and then then we're gonna put another thing in here. We're gonna say average of did win, right, as win percentage. This will give us our win percentage. And then we also want to say count distinct match ID. Oh, wait, do we need to put match ID? All right, we need to put it back up in here. So we're going to say am.match ID. That will give us because we need to see the distinct number of matches for this player, right? Or for this combination, right, as number of matches. Because if we don't want to like really include teammates who we've only played like one game with, you know, because like just because we had one good game, see all these guys over here. This is like number of matches. There's like all of these are just like one. This is bad because it's like if you have one good match with someone, that's not a good indicator that like they're a good teammate. You need to have like some data, right? More than one match to really understand if they're going to be a good teammate or not. So what we want to do here is we're going to put a having in here, right? Having count distinct match ID. And I like using 10. I think that like 10 is a good cutoff for like it's kind of arbitrary. You can pick whatever you want. I think 1 is definitely not good though, because like that's just kind of lucky. So now we only have people. So now every combination here are players who have played at least 10 games together, right? That is what's going on here now. And you'll see we have our win percentage and we have number of matches, right? And this is looking pretty good. So this is now our kind of way of managing this. Try to say here. This is our with player query, right? So what we're gonna do here is actually. Okay, there's actually a better way to do this because we need to get the overall as well, like the overall values for each player. So this having, we're actually going to end up moving, and I'll show you why. So what we're going to do here is we're going to call this like agged matches, right? And that's going to be this thing without the having. All right, we're going to put this in here as agged matches, and then we'll end up using this having later on, like in a where clause later. But we need this CTE for other reasons, and I'll show you why. So now we have our agged matches, and this will. Oh wait, hold up. Sorry, I messed up. Let's go back. This is I totally messed up right there. We don't need to do that. We're going to keep the having here. We're going to keep the having here. But what we're going to do is we're going to make this more. This query is going to get way fancy. So get ready. Buckle up. This is where we're actually going to start busting out some good SQL skills here, right? So what if we wanted to know, okay, not just what this is, because this shooting player KDR is when this person plays with this person, right? When this person plays with this person, that's their KDR. But what's their global KDR? Like what is their overall KDR? We want to know that as well. So we need to actually group by fewer columns here, right? We also want to group by just like shooting player and playlist. Because if we group by just those two columns, then we'll get the overall KDR for that player. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to bust out a new concept here. We're going to say group by grouping sets. So grouping sets are a way to do multiple aggregations at once, right? So what we're going to do in here is we're going to put in shooting player, helping player, and playlist. because with grouping sets, if you don't put all of the keys that are the non-aggregating keys in grouping sets, it will fail, right? So I'll show you, like, if I don't put playlist in here, it's going to be like mad at me. It's going to yell, right? And it's going to be like, see, playlist must appear in the group by. So you have to have at least one grouping set that uses all of the aggregated keys. But then you can also include other grouping sets that have fewer keys, right? So like I say, like shooting player, playlist, right? So now let's run this, and I'll kind of show you what's going on here. Okay, so now you'll see in here, you see how there's like all these nulls. So what happens is helping player ends up getting nulled out, right? And so what we can do is we can actually use coalesce here. So I'm going to say coalesce playlist comma overall as playlist, right? And so now this will, and we want to coalesce here, coalesce helping player comma overall as helping player. Right, so now if we run this code, you'll see that those nulls will actually turn into overalls, which will make this a lot easier to kind of like grok, right? So you see how like now we have like overall here. So this player's overall KDR in Breakout is 0.96, right? But when they play with attacked, it's 1.14. So like this guy should probably play with attacked because he does like almost 20% better. So there is some, I want to go over some things here real quick though, because we also want to know like what is the overall, the global KDR and win rate for a player, right? The way we can do that is like we just do shooting player, right? We just group by shooting player, right? If we run this, now we can get overall in both playlist and helping player. See how now we have like there's a double overall. So now this is ignoring playlist, ignoring player. This is just their global average, right? And then this is their average for this playlist. And then this is their average for this playlist with this player, right? And so this gives us kind of like some good overall averages. One of the things to be careful about here though, is that like when you're using grouping sets, you want to make sure that these columns are not null ahead of time, right? Because if this column is null before you do the grouping set, when you coalesce here, it's going to give you the wrong result. So, and one of the things that I know in this data set is that playlist is actually often null. And so what you want to do is before you do grouping sets, you want to coalesce any null values to like unknown or not available or whatever you want to put in here. I'm going to put unknown here. I'll show you how this actually does change the result a little bit, because these overalls, like there'll be another row here now for that playlist, for that like unknown playlist, because you don't want to confuse overall and none. Oh, see, here's one like with amplified, right? See this unknown. This row would have just been pushed into the overall bucket, even though it's like just null ahead of time. So this fixes it so that we can have good grouping sets. You just like when you use grouping sets, you should operate under the assumption that every column in the grouping set like should always be non-null ahead of time. Otherwise, you're gonna get weird results, right? And you don't want weird results, right? So what's up?
I had a question. I thought that select statements always get executed last. So how does that take care of, why does it take care of that? That was my impression. The execution order is that select is.
Yeah, it's last, but not when it's in a CTE, right? This CTE gets fired first, right?
Oh, right.
And so that's why this unknown works, because because it's in a CTE and wrapped in a CTE like this. You're totally right. If I try to smash the coalesce here, it's not going to work because it will fire afters. The select will fire last, right? And then the coalesce won't do what we want it to do. That's why CTEs are powerful, right? Is that you can fire a select before a group by. And so I definitely recommend that. Like, yeah, that's one of the powerful things here, right? And that's why I really like CTEs. They're really, really awesome. So this gives us kind of our grouping sets, right? And that gives us kind of our matches. And this gives us what we want here, right? And this is really close now to what we want to have for our dashboard, actually.
I guess I have a question regarding the grouping sets. Is that just a Postgres thing, or is that available in T-SQL as well? And
Yeah.
does this group by like, you know how there's 3 different criterias now? Like, so how is it the result set? Like, how do you know which one is it doing it by when?
Yeah, that's where that's where the doing these overalls helps a lot, so that you can identify what aggregation level this is at, right? The overalls
okay,
help a lot.
there it is. Yeah.
Grouping sets in general are available in most languages or most query engines. The only place I haven't seen grouping sets, which I've had conversations before about, is in Redshift. With Redshift, you're going to have to just do like 3 group bys and a union all and be sad. That's just every other language and every other query engine I've worked with like has grouping sets as a construct. It's a pretty common thing. So definitely, that's why I'm teaching it right now. So the last kind of piece of this puzzle is we want to get the overall and the playlist averages on the same row, so we can see like the percent difference, right? So we want to get like this overall row on the same row as all these other non-overall rows, so that we can kind of do that. So this is what I'm going to call those agged matches. This is this query here, right? And then take this guy, put him in here, and then what we want to do is we're going to call this we're going to call this playlist averages, right? And in this case, we're going to say select star from agged matches where playlist does not equal overall and helping player equals overall. So this will give us our playlist averages, and we'll go from there. So then we're going to say select star, and then we're going to say the other one, right? We need to say the player averages, which is as, in this case, this is the one where they both don't equal overall and helping player does not equal overall. So what we can say is that we're going to say select star from player averages PA join playlist averages PLA on PA dot shooting player equals PLA dot shooting player, and PA dot playlist equals shooting player dot playlist. No, PA dot playlist. PLA dot playlist. So this should give
quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question. I joined a little bit late, so apologies for that. Is the ID that you're using, is that by JetBrains?
This is data grip. Yeah, data grip. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's I really like data grip. So yeah. So now this right here, like I'm just gonna put PA dot star comma PLA dot in this case we're gonna say shooting player KDR and PLA dot helping player KDR. Or no, I mean we don't need helping player KDR. We just need shooting player KDR. And so now this will give us. Let's just look at this. You'll kind of see how this kind of like works together now, and we'll. It's a really fancy way of going about doing these queries. Okay, cool. So now we have, like, you'll see all the overalls are gone, but now we have another column here at the end. See this shooting player KDR is, so this is their overall KDR for that playlist, right? Because we do a join here on that, right? And then we also want to say PLA dot win percentage, because that gives us our overall win percentage. So I'm going to say as overall KDR, this is as overall win percentage. Let's run this. So this gives us like a pretty fancy little query here that will give us, we'll have a bunch of columns here, right? So you can see here's our overall win percentage, and this is our win percentage when we play with this player, right? So what we can do here, right, is we can then do some ratios, right? So let's go ahead and put those ratios in here. That's like another important piece of this. So we can say PA.win percentage divided by PLA.win percentage as win percentage ratio, right? And we also want to do the same thing for PA.shooting player KDR divided by PLA.shooting player as KDR ratio. So these will give us like some good numbers here. So like we're looking for things that are above 1 in these cases, right? And so these actually should probably be like 1 minus so that we can have like a good idea here. So, okay, there we go. So now you can see we have our ratios, and you can see, okay, like for this player playing with this guy in SWAT, he plays 80% better than average, right? So these guys really do want to play together, right? And you can all of this stuff, like all of these numbers here are the same as, let me go to that, like where's that at? Oh. So you see this table here that has like this win percent change and this you see KDR percent change and win percent change. That's exactly what we just calculated, right? We were able to calculate these numbers to see like, okay, when I'm playing with this player, how much more often do I win, right? And that's what this query is currently doing, right? And that is pretty much like what's going on here, right? I'm curious, does anyone have any other kind of questions about this? I just like kind of vomited a bunch of SQL on you guys. So if there's anything that didn't make sense here, please let me know. Okay, awesome. One second, I just need to get a glass of water real quick. Okay, so we now have our query, right? And this is essentially how we do this comparison, right? And we do all of these things, right? And you can see how like one of the things I want to point out with this query is that like this is only one table. Like you notice essentially one table. Like we use matches and playlists to get like a couple dimensions at the top, but we mostly just use match details for pretty much everything, right? Because we just join it to itself. That's where this self join happens, right? And then we can kind of see how these things impact each other, right? And we can, so I use this to figure out, so what I'm gonna show you is like, if we say, I'm gonna put a where in here, we're gonna say where PA.shootingPlayer equals exactly, right? So essentially what my front end is doing that like shows all these charts is it just puts a where clause in this like this, and then we can, this will filter it down to just people who I've played with, right? And then you can kind of see like, you can see how I play a lot of Breakout. Breakout is where I have a lot of people. And then you can kind of see like, okay, who should I be playing with? And it says like, oh, if I play with Phasor, like I win a lot. Or I win 20% more often, and my KDR is 60% better. So that's like, this is what I used. This data set right here is what I used to figure out who my dream team was, right? And I figured out like, oh, these are the players I should be with so that I can win more often, right? And this is how I was able to become like an elite Halo player. I really think that like these analytics helped me a lot in doing that. So yeah, that's kind of like the idea. So that was kind of like a really complicated, query that I think like was definitely like covering a lot of different things here, right? We covered self joins, we've covered grouping sets.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. That was a very long training. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please share it with your friends, share it on LinkedIn, wherever you want to share it, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to talk more about this in the comments. Thank you very much.